So I'm just going to run through the absolute value function. So your basic equation of this one is y equals the absolute value of x. Now, the basic shape of this is like a V, looks like that. Now, I'm going to show you more in detail why it's actually a V. Okay, so if you start out and you've got y equals the absolute value of x, that means that what's inside could be plus x, or what's inside could be minus x. So if you then went to sketch those two, lines, there you go, like this and this, then when you're sketching them, that's y equals x and y equals minus x. Now, the other thing too is because y, so if you look at this, y equals the absolute value of x. Now, any x value you put in there, when you absolute value it, it's going to always be positive. Like if you put in 2, like the absolute value of that will be 2. It won't be plus or minus 2, it'll just be 2. See, if you put in 2, you get 2. You don't get minus 2 down here. And if you put in 3, the same thing. The absolute value of 3 is 3. So that means that this part of the curve down here is not part of it, so you've got to rub it out. And if you put in x equals minus 2, so put in x equals minus 2 and have a look what happens. So you get absolute value of minus 2, which is positive 2. So if you put in minus 2, you get positive 2, which is up there, not down the bottom here. If you put in x equals minus 1, then the absolute value of minus 1 is just 1. So that's up here, not down the bottom. So you rub that out, okay? If you put in 0, y equals the absolute value of 0, you just get 0. So basically, if you look at this, the curve goes here, and anything below the axis is not part of it, because when y equals the absolute value of x, once you absolute value the x, if you absolute value the negative or a positive or 0, it's always going to be the positive half of this graph. So that's why your basic shape looks like that. And each of these lines here, they come from, y equals x, and it's just the top half of that. Y equals minus x as well. Okay. All right, so the next thing, the shifting on this works exactly the same as well. So if you were looking at your absolute value curve and you were looking at your shifting, if you have something inside the function like that, then that will shift it left. So that means that that will go left. It'll go left to 2, so it'll go to minus 2. And if you get that and you have your basic shape and you shift it left to minus 2, keep the basic shape. So it comes from y equals x, that's why it's at 45 degrees, and it goes here, and that's at like an angle of 45 degrees as well. And that's basically your absolute value curve. Now you could also, let's do something that shifts up or down. So let's do it like that. So that would be a vertical shift. So the vertical shift here, that would have to go down 1. So go down 1, and then make sure you do it at 45 degrees and 45 degrees. It'll go through 1 and minus 1. But if you're unsure, just put y equals 0 in there. And 0 is the absolute value of x minus 1. 1 equals the absolute value of x. So x could equal plus or minus 1. And that's why you get the 1 and the minus 1 here. And that's the y-intercept is also minus 1. This one here too, we probably should have, when we were looking at this, just put in when x equals 0, you would have got y equals the absolute value of 0 plus 2. So y would equal 2. Okay, so what I'd like to look at now is if we if we look at these absolute value curves and we put the x and the y inside the absolute value, so it's not like your standard one, then basically what's inside here could have been a plus or it could be a minus. So this part here, it could be a +3 or it could be a -3, because when you absolute value -3, you get 3, and when you absolute value 3, you get 3 as well. So it could be either one of those. So that means that x plus y could have equaled 3 and x plus y could have equaled -3. So you just make it plus or minus. Then y would be, if you bring the x over, minus x plus 3, and y will be minus x minus 3. So now when you go to sketch that, y equals minus x, so that's down this way, and then you go up 3, so that would be there. Okay. And then when you do the other one, y equals minus x, and then you go, so minus x, and then you go minus 3. So that's down there. So it'll be minus 3. And they just end up being two parallel lines. Now, with this one here, if you have a good look at it, there is no restriction on the x or the y, because it's x plus y equals 3, and both of them are inside the absolute value, but so there's nothing there actually restricting it whatsoever. So that's what your curve will look like. And I just want to talk about all the other, some of the other shifting and ideas as well. Like if you put minus in there at the front of the absolute value and then say a 2 there, it's going to do the same thing as if we did it with a parabola or with a cubic. All of these follow the same process. So basically, these all have different things. That one there will flip it. That just flips it. The 2 will make it steeper. So it's called vertically dilates it. And the 3 will mean it'll go down 3. And the +1 will mean it'll go left 1. So it still folds its V shape. It's just actually going to be steeper. Okay, so let's go left 1, down 3. And I'm just going to do this and move it up a bit. And let's just have a quick look at that. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go down 3. Then the 2 will make it steeper. So it's going to be here. This is where it's going to start. If I put in x equals 0, this will help me with my steepness of it, because I'll see basically how steep it's going to be. So it's -2 times 1 minus 3. So it goes to -5. Okay, so you can see it's a little bit steeper than 45 degrees. So if you draw that down there, then you just have to basically make it really symmetric. Like if you folded that in half, you'd have to draw it on the other side, and then it would be symmetric. Now there's just one more type of shifting that I haven't done. We do a bit more of this in Year 12. But if this was 2x plus 1, and then say -3, then that's going to end up being, like you got your down 3, that's the easy part. What you do here to get what your horizontal shift is, factorise the 2 out, so it'll be 2 times what is 2 times x, plus 1 over. Now you need to put in an extra 2 here, because when you expand that, you want it to be able to cancel with that 2 that's outside there. Okay, so I'll just do that and make it back to the blue, and we'll go absolute value. So now that 2 there, that just affects the steepness, but that there would be a horizontal shift left by 1/2. So now when you go to sketch that and you put it onto a number plane, it's going to go, we're going to go to -1/2 to the left. So that's basically where it's going to go. So if I just chuck in x equals 0, I'll get my y-intercept. And I end up with y equals 1. So that would be a half if I did it, and 1 would be there. So see how it is slightly steeper than a 45-degree angle? And then you just mirror exactly the same on the other side because it's got symmetry.